If you're wanting to learn to draw, or perhaps you've just started, then that's great. But whatever level you're at right now, and whatever your dream might be, before you pick up a pen or a pencil or a brush, before you start looking through YouTube channels to see which ones you're going to use, here are 3 truths that you need to know. 3 truths that, knowing them, will set you up to position, to progress the time you put into drawing, so as to end up with the best possible result in the fastest time. And the first truth is this: notions you may have about talent, what it is, what it's going to do for you, are pretty much irrelevant and almost certainly unhelpful. Most of us, when we think we might have a go at learning to draw, have some notion, have some reason to think that we might, or perhaps even do, have some talent. Possibly as a very young child, our teachers at school said, "Wow, this is so good, you're very talented," and that stuck. And we've had that thought, I wonder if it's worth developing learning to draw more. And if we're honest, what can end up being a part of this process is somehow the thought that I'm going to have a head start. It's going to be easier for me than other people. I'm going to get really good really quickly because I've got talent. So I start by thinking that somehow it's just going to flow, that I'm going to find it easy, or at least easier, that my drawing will improve quickly, that I'll be fast-tracked to get to some sort of end result that I have in my mind. Perhaps even that I won't have to put that much effort into it to get really impressive results. And all of this is so unhelpful for so many ways. Let me start by saying I actually don't think talent is a thing. If it is, it's pretty negligible. I think what we mistake for talent is simply the fact that on a given day, if I go to do a drawing with other people going to do a drawing and we all start on the same day, some of us start in a different place to others. And that place isn't because we've had art lessons, but it's simply our experience with life happens by coincidence to have developed skills that we use in drawing that other people haven't had the chance, by the things they've done in life or the opportunities they've had, to develop. It might be my powers of observation. Perhaps, I don't know, I liked looking out for birds, and so I learnt to observe things in the natural world very closely. Perhaps my hand-eye coordination has been developed through, I don't know, needlework, embroidery, really fine observation and thinking and getting that needle in the right place, having arm movements that go from my fingers to my shoulders. And without realizing it, the effort and years I put into that, or those things, have equipped me to actually start further ahead with a lot of skill development. It's not because I'm talented, I just happen to have learned earlier some of the things I need to know to be able to draw well. Which brings us to the second very important truth. And that's that when I'm learning to draw, the emphasis should be on I'm learning even more than the to draw, because learning is a process. And in so many ways, the ability to learn is a skill in itself. Now, we don't realize this so much because at school, we learn to learn while we're learning something else. We're learning numbers, we're learning words. And subconsciously, we start to learn the way we learn, at least in school, and hopefully our teachers are consistent in using these patterns of, if you like, interacting with new material so as to make as easy as possible our ability to engage with it, take it on board, integrate it with what we already know and what we can already do, and then extend that in some way with the new information or skills. And some of us also learn in different ways to others. There is not one way to learn, and therefore the sorts of teaching material that helps me may be different from the sort of teaching material that's really helped someone else. Because, well, between a combination of the way our brains work and the experiences we've had in life up till this point, some ways of doing this learning process for me might be very different to someone else. I might do really well with really understanding theoretical issues, whereas someone may learn by actually putting marks on the paper, looking at the results, and making decisions based on that. Or I might be a combination of the two. But if I appreciate that learning a skill is what I'm doing when I learn to draw, and that learning is a skill, then I'll also be aware of the fact that I need to think about, I need to challenge, I need to critique in a way, the ways I'm learning to draw, and making sure that they're giving me the results I'm after, because if not, there may be a better way I can learn to draw that will set me up for less frustration and faster and better results. And thirdly, if I appreciate that I'm learning to draw, then it sets me up to understand that I'm not producing artworks when I sit down with a sheet of paper and a pen. What I'm doing is I'm learning to draw. And when we're learning a skill, we're producing exercises. We're doing practice. We're not somehow sitting down from day one and producing what will be, we hope, the end result. When I start to learn the piano, I don't sit down with a full piece of music and somehow expect that I can learn in that first week to play it all the way through. There'll be way too many things that will challenge a beginner. Instead, I'll start with a few fingers, with a few notes, and I will practice those over and over again, hopefully with a teacher giving me some direction, so that I can work out when I'm doing it correctly and then really nail that skill. And then I can build on that in my next or subsequent lessons. This is not unlike what we do when we draw. And one of the biggest problems that I see people doing when they're learning to draw is trying to do too much at once. Trying to do the equivalent of, in their early days, playing an entire concerto instead of a simplified music piece that only has 3 notes that are fairly repetitively positioned. And instead of building a strong foundation then to build on, we have a lot of things that are done, well, weakly, if we want to be kind, badly, if perhaps we want to be more direct. And this is not a good way to learn. When I'm thinking that I'm meant to have an artwork, or I want to have an artwork at the end of the lesson, then there are 3 problems, I think. Firstly, it puts pressure on me to not make a mistake, and that means my focus is on not making mistakes instead of learning how to put ink or pencil or whatever marks on the paper to create some sort of overall effect by the end. That's a very different way of thinking than of at every point, every mark has to be perfect. Secondly, this focus on artworks means my focus is on what I have at the end, and therefore not on the process of learning. And so I'm thinking, if I can just find the tips, the techniques, the tricks, the secrets that the artists don't want us to know without paying them a lot of money, then I'll be able to produce the artworks, because somehow we've disconnected the drawing from the learning process. That sets us up for frustration and for chasing something, the video with the magic answers, that doesn't exist. And finally, it encourages me to try and draw things that are beyond my ability, because I want an impressive artwork at the end. So I find subjects that excite me, that look dramatic, that have a lot of detail, that have a lot of extremes, that are extremely difficult to draw. And the worst thing is if I don't realize I've actually drawn it badly. It's far easier to see problems that my drawing might have if it's a simple drawing, which makes it easier to see the things I want to change and then to change them, and then to be able to see if I have changed them when I compare the two. G'day, I'm Stephen Travis. Look, I hope these 3 truths are helpful. They're certainly not meant to put you off, but I really think that having a clearer picture of the realities of what we're doing actually sets us up for far better results far more easily than if we're trying to muddle through, let's call them misapprehensions about what we're doing and the best way to do it. But look, in the end, whatever you do as you start this wonderful drawing journey, and however you do it and however it progresses, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.